Welcome to another episode of Citizen Senior. My name is Steve Louie.
Hello, my name is Margaret Louie.
Understanding emotions and the power of loving kindness.
Exploring emotional awareness and compassionate living with Citizen Senior, CSEN.
This episode explores how our emotions can add humanity to rationality, or how emotions can hijack our best intentions in ways that bring us even less control, less self-confidence, and diminishes our attitude about positivity about life.
Believe it or not, our emotional habits come from ancient self-defense patterns in our brains.
To cultivate new habits of self-awareness requires catching ourselves in the act of becoming emotionally hijacked and choosing different, more productive habits of thinking.
Let's find out how we can use our breathing to help us focus on our thoughts as observers and not as victims of runaway emotional hijacks. Exploring together neuroscience of human emotions, the importance of emotional awareness, timing in awareness is everything. Choose what's next.
Have you ever wondered how we can be compassionate and kind to other people? We go out of our way to help animal shelters. Maybe we even volunteer at a homeless veterans shelter. Or there's that radio program we support. And let's not forget those delicious cookies we buy from children.
At the same time, and this is very important, while we are kind and loving towards others, have you noticed you can be super hard and negative about yourself? Those two fingers you see here are on the same hand. Yours.
We will cover 4 main sections: the foundations of human emotions, the importance of emotional awareness, exploring loving kindness, and how to integrate loving kindness into everyday life for greater well-being and compassion. We're talking about building a new set of habits, skills, and knowledge. So take your time for yourself. Neuroscience of human emotions.
Neuroscience is a relatively new study of the nervous system that includes physiology, anatomy, molecular biology, psychology, brain imaging, genetics, and computer science.
It is natural to think of the brain as being similar to a machine or computer. But the reality is that there are major controversies as to how the brain accomplishes everything, from emotions to problem-solving skills that incorporate our knowledge of our environment and the ability to be amazingly creative in myriad ways.
Rather than ask you to seek a PhD in neuroscience, we're going to present a more simplified view in order to explore how even senior women can learn new ways of coping with the symptoms of ADHD while remaining faithful to what we currently know. In future episodes, if we need to update our presentation, we will do so without hesitation.
The one thing you and I have in common with neuroscientists is that we need to be honest about our ADHD symptoms and also realize that the power of compassion and loving kindness towards ourselves is essential to improvement. Active duty Navy Marine Corps psychiatry. From 1975 to 79, I worked on both wings of the 5th floor at Oak Knoll Naval Hospital, built during World War II to treat military personnel wounded in the Pacific. In later years, it treated those from the Korean to Vietnam Wars. Closed in 1996 and destroyed on April 8, 2011. The yellow arrow points to the floors that I worked on. I did not remain in psychiatry, however, because I did not feel that the field was scientifically rigorous enough to warrant a variety of treatments. Even today, the entire field of neuroscience is still relatively new, although major developments in understanding neural activity in specific brain areas have been made over the last few decades. Much of neurology itself owes advancements in understanding issues such as post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, epilepsy, concussions, and traumatic brain injury to direct observation of injured patients by neuropsychiatric staff. Throughout that period in American neuropsychiatric care, misinformation and public concerns related to the indefinite warehousing of psychiatric patients ebbed and peaked in public consciousness. Of particular note during my personal experience at Oakland Naval Hospital was the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of American Psychiatric Association related to borderline personality disorder, psychosis, and personality disorders. The problem of misinformation about science. The National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, established in 1863 by an act of Congress, signed by President Abraham Lincoln as a private, non-governmental institution to advise the nation on issues related to science and technology, and to provide independent, objective analysis and advice to the nation in the conduct of complex problem-solving education and research, and contributions to knowledge with the express purpose of increasing public understanding in the matters of science, engineering, and medicine.
Another hurdle in recovery from Helene: misinformation is getting in the way. The New York Times, October 6, 2024. This headline is an outstanding example of how misinformation is perceived in the public arena. The headline makes a causal assumption that misinformation is getting in the way of recovery from the hurricane's devastating impact. The degree of accuracy of this assumption is a question for further study and empirical examination. But the very assumption that misinformation has a direct causal impact on release efforts with significant negative consequences is noteworthy, and newsworthy is the part of what motivated this report.
Information and misinformation is everywhere. On our phones, televisions, in the gym, social media. Some of this information is brain candy, simple entertainment, and inconsequential. Some of it, though, has the potential to impact public health, inform public policy responses, and shape people's perception of the world. If misinformation about science leads to beliefs that are in conflict with accepted science, the consequences can be profound. Definitions and types of emotions.
Nature of emotions. Emotions are complex reactions responding to both internal thoughts and external events.
Primary emotions. Primary emotions include basic feelings such as joy, anger, fear, sadness that are universally recognized.
Role of complex emotions. More complex emotions influence behavior and decision-making beyond basic feelings. Emotions are multifaceted responses to internal and external stimuli. They include primary emotions like joy, anger, fear, and sadness, as well as more complex feelings that shape our behavior and decisions.
Are facial expressions universal? Facial expressions are both universal and culture-specific. Dr. Paul Ekman discovered strong evidence of universality of some facial expressions of emotion, as well as why expressions appear differently across cultures. He did so by showing some of the above photographs that you see in the picture above and asked people what emotions they represented. From that, he determined that emotions are universal. Biological and psychological roots of emotions. Don't worry, you're not going to be tested on this. Biological basis of emotions. Emotions originate from brain activity centered in the limbic system and are influenced by hormones and neural processes. As you can see in the picture on the right, the colored areas, which represents the limbic system. And most importantly, if you follow the yellow arrow, it goes up to the amygdala. Psychological influences. Past experiences and cognitive experiences shape how individuals perceive and respond emotionally.
Emotions arise from brain activity involving the limbic system and are influenced by the hormonal and neural processes. Psychological factors like past experiences and cognition also shape emotional responses.
The yellow area, once again, is to the amygdala, which for our purposes is the source of emotions.
In people with ADHD, the amygdala may become very enlarged because almost all decisions are emotionally based, rather than using the prefrontal cortex, PFC, the rational decision maker.
The thalamus does not route to the PFC in ADHD senior women. The hippocampus remembers only short-term memories, justifying the emotional response. The olfactory lobes may even imagine negative smells related to the emotional memory. The hypothalamus releases hormones controlling heart rate, body temperature, sleep-wake cycles. Why reading may be such a chore. Billions of neurons with trillions of connections. In this picture, we have enlarged a neuron thousands of times larger than it exists within our brain and yours. This is not its appropriate length either, and there's no such thing as bluish dendrites at the end of the neuron.
What's amazing about this neuron in living tissue is that the entire structure is primarily electrical in terms of signaling along the length of the axon until it reaches its end, at which time the signal becomes neurochemical.
Parts of the neuron. Here we're going to actually look at some neural anatomy. Again, we're using the previous image and we've put it into a schematic form on the right of this slide, as you can see, and the parts of the neuron are labeled.
The signal is demonstrated here as traveling from the right to the left. However, there is some controversy as research has also been published showing bidirectional travel.
What is significant, however, is the signal is not just a matter of one signal being propagated along one neuron. The finger-like projections at the end of the neuron, pictured on the left side of the picture, represent the strength of the associated signal by the number of dendrites that make connections with other neurons. The yellow neuronal sheathing, pictured on the right, is myelin sheathing. That serves to protect the axon from damage and allows the electrical signal from experiencing interference. It's kind of like a glove that protects your hands. You would not want your muscles to receive interfering electrical signals from elsewhere. In this extreme blow up of the end and the beginning of a neuron connection, if you look closely, you can see little particles going across from one axon, one neuron, to the other one. So it's going from the axon to the dendrites of the other one. The little yellow circles that you see are the receptors, and they're located all around the bulb of the receiving dendrite. And so that's what happens. It becomes an electrical signal through the rest of the axon, then suddenly it becomes a chemical signal. It squirts across the synapse, which is what it's called, and then it's converted into an electrical signal once again. The signal is demonstrated here as traveling from right to left, but just a reminder, Metacognition, avoiding the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Awareness. Most emotions happen so quickly that there is hardly any awareness of one's thought processes and an understanding of emotional patterns driving our thoughts.
This is why awareness occurs first and then thoughts. Meta means beyond or on top of, wherein we take the time to reflect on our ways of thinking, knowing, and how to react strategically in problem solving.
Redoing our awareness of learning and the importance of experience. Instead of simply reacting to events, we have to remember there are better ways of solving problems. We give ourselves time to think.
The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias in which people with limited competencies in a particular domain overestimate their abilities. It was first described by psychologists Dunning and Justin Kruger in 1999. Some researchers also include the opposite effect for high performers' tendency to underestimate their skills. In popular culture, the Dunning-Kruger effect is often misunderstood as a claim about overconfidence of people with low intelligence instead of specific overconfidence of people unskilled at a particular task.
According to the metacognitive explanation, poor performers misjudge their abilities because they fail to recognize the qualitative difference between their performances and the performances of others. The statistical model explains the empirical findings as a statistical effect of combination with the general tendency to think that one is better than average.
Conscious awareness. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 brain phases.
1. Detect.
2. Pulse.
3. Switch.
4. Wave. This is from Hal Blumenfield, Department of Neurology, Neuroscience, and Neurosurgery at Yale University School of Medicine, New Haven, Connecticut. Being able to recognize and label emotions improves emotional clarity and helps in responding appropriately to feelings rather than reacting impulsively.
1. Detect. Primary and high cortical and subcortical circuits detect stimulus and select it for conscious perception.
2. Pulse. Transient and massive neuromodulatory surges in subcortical and cortical arousal and amplifies as signs enabling consciousness to proceed.
Switch. Interfering networks are switched off, requiring longer than normal efforts to switch off interference than non-ADHD people.
4. Wave. Sequential processing through cortical regions produces a fully formed precept encoded in frontoparietal working memory and medial temporal areas of the brain.
Emotional intelligence, EQ, and regulation.
Emotional EQ and conscious perception and understanding. Emotional intelligence starts with perceiving and understanding emotions in oneself and others effectively, consciously, and deliberately.
Emotion EQ management. Managing emotions involves the conscious use of strategies to control emotional responses and maintain balance. Do not allow emotions to hijack consciousness.
Stress reduction strategies. Effective regulation strategies help reduce stress and improves interpersonal relationships. Stress adds to emotional hijacking. For those wondering if there's a scientific basis for EQ and mindfulness, John Kabat-Zinn's book, Full Catastrophe Living, provides an in-depth look at mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR, which is used in a wide variety of clinical applications at Boston University Hospital under research conditions. Some people misunderstood and misunderstand the purpose of meditation incorrectly as stopping certain thoughts, when the real purpose is to simply observe those thoughts without emotional reaction. Emotional hijacking occurs when we think, act, believe, with often extreme emotions involved rather than thoughtful composure and EQ. Margaret, how has your practice of mindfulness and emotional intelligence been for you?
I have found that being better prepared on a daily basis to think before acting has changed my way of life, quite honestly. I don't read as well as I wish I did. And so being able to see these practices, experience the meditation, and my rubber band trick, I have a rubber band trick, it helps me to get through the day more successfully.
Thank you. And by the way, all of us are emotionally hijacked at some point or another. Whether we learn from that experience or not is probably more positive for those people who practice mindfulness. Benefits of self-awareness. It promotes resilience. Self-awareness helps individuals recover quickly from challenges and adjust to changes effectively. It enhances empathy. Understanding oneself improves our ability to empathize and connect deeply with others. It improves decision-making. Being self-aware leads to more thoughtful and informed decisions, and that affects our personal, relationship, and professional life. It supports our well-being. Self-awareness nurtures mental and emotional health, contributing to overall well-being. When we are emotionally hijacked, we are not our best selves. In the next episode, we'll focus on the practice of mindfulness and the development of emotional intelligence, or EQ. Thanks for your attention, and please click on the like button if you appreciate this episode and want to support our development of future episodes.